joining us here at the I-24 News Desk Wrap, where we take a closer look at today's big stories. I'm Jordana Miller. The Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is wrapping up a 3-day visit here in Israel, largely considered a success. He has spent the 3 days with the Prime Minister touring both in Jerusalem in the north and in Tel Aviv, getting a tech demonstration today. Now, joining us here in the studio to talk more about this trip is Ellie Hochenberg, our diplomatic reporter, and at the airport, our international affairs reporter, Owen Alterman. Ellie, let's start with what was on the agenda today.
Yeah, so the two leaders started the day by taking a helicopter ride to the northern city of Haifa during their trip there. Netanyahu explained to Modi a bit about the geopolitical situation here, mainly showing him how tiny Israel is, especially in comparison to India, of course. There they went to a British cemetery to pay tribute to fallen Indian soldiers of World War I, and from there they headed back to Tel Aviv, not before having a very unusual or unorthodox stop at the beach. Let's take a look, or perhaps more accurately, a listen to what both leaders had to say again in this very unique encounter they had earlier today.
Great.
Alive. We're alive. We're here on the beach. Two friends, India, Israel, and we went on a jeep.
Yeah.
But it's a future jeep. And Prime Minister, it's a pleasure to have you.
It's a Galmobile.
You can say whatever you want.
I'm very, very thankful to Bibi because the vehicle which I saw today, particularly in the natural calamity, when people are suffering for the drinking water, this is the very unique type of vehicle which can provide a drinking water and how to do the process. It's a very, very simple way. I'm sure this is a unique product. Thank you so much.
Toda rabah. Toda lachem.
Well, we just got a taste there of the bromance that everyone's been talking about, the really personal ties there between Netanyahu and Modi. But let's talk about what some of the real issues of this visit are. Israel, a teeny country, India, 1.3 billion, and yet somehow India needs Israel.
Yeah, because there is common ground, both when we're talking about basic ideology, the fact and democratic nature of both nations, but also when we're looking towards the future, when we talk about cutting-edge technologies, when we're talking about water development, agriculture, etc., etc. Israel has a lot to contribute to India, and of course Israel is very happy to have India as a friend. But I do like to address the unique bond between the two leaders. You know, we often speak about the era of Twitter diplomacy in a negative context. We see President Trump using it in a somewhat dubious manner, but throughout this visit we've seen both leaders tweeting all day long in the respective language of the other nations, and this is how technology or the unique bond between two leaders can really exceed the borders of formality and reach the hearts of the people. And I think this is a very unique aspect of the visit. But as you've mentioned, many concrete issues from technology through water and agriculture, even space programs are on the agenda, and a general sense of a mutual strategic vision, if you will,
right.
that both countries are sharing.
Viewers, that the Indian president invited the Israeli Prime Minister,
yeah, the Indian Prime Minister, and Netanyahu is positive. Yeah, he's going to head there soon.
Let's take let's go to Owen Alterman, our international affairs reporter, who is. Oh, we seem to be having a technical problem with Owen. One thing, Ellie, that has not been addressed on this visit are India's strong ties with Iran. It's one thing that's been kind of skipped over in the same way that any discussion of the conflict with the Palestinians has been skipped over, and Modi's controversial decision not to go to Ramallah.
Yes, well, officials have been telling us that the focus of this historic visit was really to enhance bilateral ties. It was not about international forums or diplomatic agenda. It's definitely not about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and perhaps we're not used to it here, but the bilateral relationship has a lot to go to, and this is why the focus on both sides was on that topic rather than other global players. And we can also see Israel having a positive relationship with Russia, for example, a close ally of Iran. So a new era of diplomacy, at least from the Israeli perspective.
Thanks. We now can go to our foreign international affairs reporter, Owen Alterman. Hi, Owen. Good to see you up there. Tell us what's going on there at the airport. Has Modi actually taken off yet?
Not yet, but the ceremony has ended, Jordana. A very, very brief ceremony. The Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, arrived first, went to the end of the red carpet. The army band played with its trumpets for just a moment, and then a few minutes later, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in his car, walked to the end of the red carpet, was greeted by Prime Minister Netanyahu. They said their goodbyes, and then Narendra Modi ascended the flight of stairs to the plane. He'll take off for Hamburg. He's going to the G20 summit along with Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin so famously, and so many other major world leaders. The next big event on the international calendar, but of course at the end of a 3-day visit that was historic here in Israel, the first ever time that an Indian Prime Minister, a serving Indian Prime Minister, has come here to Israel.
Oh, and looking back over these 3 days, it's hard not to call this trip really a successful one.
Oh, absolutely. From the perspective of Israel and the perspective of Prime Minister Netanyahu, this was a real chance for Israel to show its acceptance on the international stage when a country as large and as important and as prominent as India comes here, especially after 25 years and after the history of this relationship, which wasn't always so close. And from the Indian perspective, Jordana, I can say by being on the ground the last few days, a lot of interest in this trip by the Indian media, a lot of Indian reporters here to cover it. Prime Minister Modi spent 2 full days here. We were at the event last night held by the Indian diaspora here in Israel, both Indian expatriates working and living here temporarily, and the estimated 80,000 Jews of Indian origin who have immigrated here to Israel. A lot of excitement about this visit, a lot of enthusiasm as Prime Minister Modi now goes on to his next stop and leaves behind this historic visit.
What kind of impact, Owen, do you think this might have on Modi going into the G20?
Well, look, this was another visit by an Indian Prime Minister who makes a lot of international visits, trying to extend his country's cooperation with other countries on the international stage. But there are a lot of thorny issues awaiting India. Look, there was thoughts of an Indian-Chinese meeting, a meeting between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the G20 summit. That doesn't look like it's going to be happening because of a border dispute between the two countries. They have a history of tension, and the Chinese upset about this, saying that India violated the border arrangements between the two countries. So there's not going to be a meeting, and that just shows that, again, the world stage is so complex and geopolitics are in such a shift because what many see as the retreat of American leadership and the rise of powers like India and like China and like Russia. So again, a very complicated world that awaits Narendra Modi and the rest of these leaders as they convene in Hamburg.
Thank you so much, Owen Alterman, our international affairs reporter there for us at Ben Gurion. We can start to see the plane there taxiing Modi, just leaving Israel in just a few moments. Summing up this trip, once again, not only a success, but really Israeli officials saying this is the kind of meeting, this visit that will really set the tone for the next 25 years.
Absolutely. And you know, it was only about 26, 27 years ago, one of the foreign ministry officials noted that Indians could not have reached Israel. It explicitly said so in their passport. So to see this substantial shift in a short period of time of 25 years is really an encouraging thing. And just to add something to what Owen mentioned, it's definitely a new era of diplomacy. And for many, many years, Israel's critics have been saying that without any progress vis-a-vis the Palestinians, Israel will not be accepted in the international community. And this groundbreaking visit by Modi shows that it is possible not to avoid completely the contentious topics that Israel is dealing with, but it is indeed possible to enhance bilateral ties while advocating peace. So again, a historic, groundbreaking visit with a whole lot of love between Indians and Israelis.
Yeah, and we want to also let our viewers know that we have highlighted so much the economic agreements that were signed in the areas of space and water, agriculture, but there's also an effort here to increase the cultural exchange, academics, research, scientists.
And this is why the mutual tweets, at least in my perspective, were so crucial in this respect, to really reach to the hearts of the people. And we've seen the vast Indian interest of Indian media in this visit, and of course the Israeli interest in this visit. So what can I say? Only positive things this time around. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much, Ellie Hilchenberg, our diplomatic reporter. We're going to take a short break, but don't go anywhere. When we come back, Trump addresses Eastern European leaders a day before going to Hamburg for the G20. What did he say? We'll tell you. Stay with us.